CPUs, this is how we can have smooth vMotion occurring across different generation of processors. However, this EVC can be enabled only for within the same family of CPUs. For example, for AMD, you can enable EVC for AMD. It is EVC for Intel, EVC for Intel. Okay. So once you enable EVC, then EVC will not allow the hosts which are not compatible with those CPU instruction sets. So that means that host cannot be a part of this cluster. So let me show you here. If you enable EVC for host, guys, you find generation 1 processors. If you create a baseline of generation 1, then the hosts which are compatible are generation 1 processor, generation 2 processor from generation 3. If you go to generation 2, the baseline would be generation 2. So the permitted hosts which can be a part of this cluster would be generation 2 and generation 3. As we move higher, only the higher capacity, because generation 3 is a baseline, so it can be worked with generation 4 and the other generation processors. In the same way for Intel, guys, Intel doesn't name their processors with generations. Normally they give a code name. So we have Intel Merom generation processors or Mehalam, Penguin, Westmere, Sandy Bridge, and Ivy Bridge, these kind of stuff. If Merom is the base, then these are the CPUs which are compatible for EVC. Okay, so if you have different generation of processors, then you can go with EVC so that vMotion can occur across different processors. Okay, so right now I'm disabling it because I know that my CPUs are identical. Fine. Click on next. Any questions on EVC, guys? Any question on EVC? Enhanced vMotion compatibility? Did you get the concept of EVC?
Explain like like I was missed the whole conversation of last 20 minutes. Like just give me shortcut, not
Okay.
the full discussion.
Okay. Fine, guys. Now, normally for vMotion, you require compatible CPUs. That means you need to have identical CPUs. Now, guys, not all hosts in your infrastructure will have identical CPUs. There might be different generation of processors. Now, if you have different generation of processors where the CPU instruction sets are different, then normally vMotion cannot occur. However, if you use this functionality of cluster, which is called as EVC, Enhanced vMotion Compatibility, then EVC will make sure that vMotion occurs smoothly across different generation of processors available on the host. Now, how it does? It does by creating a baseline. Guys, if you have generation 1, generation 2, and generation 3 processors, then the CPU instructions of generation 1 would be available on generation 2 as well as generation 3. Okay? So here, the baseline in generation 1, generation 2, and generation 3 processors is generation 1. So EVC will make sure that it creates a baseline for generation 1 processor, and it will with the help of this, then virtual machines will think that while vMotion, they are getting migrated to the same generation of processors with the same instructions, right? Because the baseline is generation 1. So in this way, we can make sure that vMotion occurs different between different generation of processors on your host. So here, this EVC can be used only with AMD hosts or only with Intel hosts. I cannot mix AMD and Intel hosts into it. So this is the functionality of EVC, Enhanced vMotion Compatibility. So this will help you in performing vMotion across different generation of processors. Clear?
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. So I'm clicking on next now. Now this is swap file policy here for virtual machines. Normally, the swap file is nothing but the .bswb file inside your virtual machines folder. Now, normally it is in the same directory as the virtual machine, and it is recommended. You need not change this setting. You can click on next. And here is the entire summary of my cluster. The name is production. and I've enabled HA. Admission control policy is enabled. I've reserved 25% of the capacity. By default, VM restart priority is medium. Isolation response default setting. I'm not using VM monitoring. Okay, and EVC is disabled, and this is finished. Now a cluster is going to get created. Okay, what is a cluster? Group of hosts. So how to add a host to the cluster? Just drag and drop, guys. Drag and drop the host. So in this way, I can just drag and drop the host into my cluster. When I drag and drop a host, then what is going to happen? Yesterday I've informed you that whenever you add a host to HA cluster, an HA agent gets installed on the ESXi host. That cluster is called as fault domain. Fault domain manager service starts and FDM agent starts. So if you see in the progress right now, in a moment you'll see that HA agent is getting installed on the host. So in the same way, see guys, if you see this, it is uploading vSphere HA agent installer on 192.168.10.60, and once this gets uploaded, it gets installed on the ESXi host. So HA agent gets installed, then what the cluster is called as fault domain, and FDM manager service, FDM service, and FDM agent starts on that ESXi host. In the same way, you can drag and drop if you have multiple ESXi hosts into your HA cluster. Okay, so let me go to my physical data center and check out whether my vCenter services are running. Then I can get connected to my data center, physical data center, and show you the remaining package. Okay, my services are running. So let me check what is happening with other vCenters. This is also started. Fine. Now here, this is how an ESXi host gets added to your cluster. In the same way, you can drag the other ESXi host into your cluster. Fine. Now, let me get connected to my the original vCenter server, this having 1.20 and 1.20 physical ESXi host.
Najib,
Yep.
hello.
Yes.
So enough for today, man. It's already 2 hours.
Okay, just a moment, I'll show you here. Guys, we'll end the session in a moment. Now here, if you see this, on my physical host, I have already configured a cluster, which is production. Just now you have seen how to add a host to your cluster by dragging and dropping. You can drag and drop multiple ESXi hosts to your cluster, maximum is 32. Once hosts are added to it, if you click on cluster production, you can see the entire details of it. If you go to the summary, here you find the entire summary of this cluster. Okay, and if I click on cluster status, guys, I told you that the hosts in a cluster will have master and slave relationship. One of the hosts would be acting as master, the other one would be acting as slave. Here in my infrastructure, if you see this, the master is 10.0.1.30, and who is the slave here? 10.0.1.20. Okay. Now, heartbeat data stores, guys, it has selected VMFS1 and VMFS2 as heartbeat data stores. No matter, you may have multiple data stores connected to your host, but only two would be selected as heartbeat data stores. And here it has selected VMFS shared 1 and VMFS shared 2. And you can see the virtual machines which are protected. That means the virtual machines which are running. Right now, there are 14 virtual machines which are running on ESXi1 and ESXi2. So these are protected 14 virtual machines. All right. So this is your cluster configuration information. And if you have any issues, you can click on cluster issues. Right now, you can see there are two issues, not major issues, but just a warning. Here it's saying that 1.20 has no management network redundancy. 1.30 also doesn't have any management network redundancy. Why it is giving me a warning message that if this management network is down, then most probably your host will get an isolated host response. So that's the reason why it is giving me issue that because it doesn't have any redundant management network, there would be problems with isolation host. So in order to avoid that, what did I inform you yesterday that you need to configure redundant management network. That means you need to configure another VM kernel port for management. Then most probably this particular issue would be resolved. So this is how we configure HA. All right. Okay, guys. As you people have requested to end the session, okay, I'm going to end the session. However, guys, tomorrow and day after tomorrow, there is a holiday here, and most probably Zoom will be closed tomorrow and day after tomorrow, and there will be no one who can power on the servers because tomorrow being an election day here, and day after tomorrow being a May Day, which is a labor holiday, so the servers cannot be powered on. So you have seen that if I'm trying to do on my laptop, it's taking a lot of time because I have only 8 GB RAM on my laptop. Even if I show you the practicals, it will be very delayed and it will take time for us. So we'll be wasting time. So let me have a word. Let me confirm, and then I'll inform you whether we can continue the classes or not. Okay, just be on a hold. Fine. All right, guys. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow, unfortunately, I cannot take a class because you have seen there are practical problems. If I want to continue the practicals on my laptop, it's hanging. My system itself is hanging. So the Zoom is closed. We cannot open Zoom because uh, tomorrow being an election day, May Day is a labor holiday. So we cannot open it. So our servers would be down. So we'll be continuing our class on Friday, the same time 3:30, and if possible, suppose if required, we can have a class on Sunday. Is it okay with you guys? If everyone agrees to have a class on Sunday, I can cover up these 2 days on Sunday. If you say okay, we can discuss this on Friday. Okay?
Yeah, मुझे
All right.
मलखेर में कहाँ रहते आप?
Satya, yes, could you repeat?
मलखेर में कहाँ रहते भाई?
कहाँ पर?
मलकाजगिरी पे रहते ना आप?
हाँ, मलकाजगिरी बराबर.
कहाँ पे मलखेर में?
मलकाजगिरी अनुटेक्स है ना?
ओके.
अनुटेक्स के पीछे, एकदम पास में, अनुटेक्स के पास में.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Okay, Vikas is saying no Sunday, please. Okay, we can discuss that on Friday. All right, guys. Then thank you so very much. We'll catch you on
Okay,
Friday.
thank you, Mujib. Okay,
You're
bye
welcome,
bye.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.